Do you know how powerful you are? Welcome to the Risepreneurs Podcast.
Welcome to Risepreneurs.
Reshaping and elevating your mindset to help you achieve what you believe.
Sometimes we don't even see our own greatness. You can't be what you can't see.
And connecting Black cultures to build a community of talent and success.
Black people need to realize that they are assets. You are an asset.
When we rise, you rise.
Come together as a group.
This is Risepreneurs with Terrell Simmons.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Rise Urban Nation. I'm your host, Terrell Simmons, and welcome. Thank you for still riding. We almost at a year, y'all. It's been, I started this journey with you at the earlier part of this year, and we're closing to the end of the year, so a year strong. So we're gonna have that 1 year anniversary soon. I don't know what I have to do something special for you. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm gonna figure it out, and then we'll get it done. This next guest that you're gonna hear today, what can I say about Mo? Mo, having a conversation with her is like going on an adventure too. Her career is an adventure, and just it was just amazing to see her journey in life and in her career. Mo is a business advisor and consultant for the 2Y 3X program, a 2-year global growth accelerator for companies that have plateaued and are ready and determined to scale up. Mo's digital career spans more than 20 years and encompasses product development, marketing, digital business, and digital business transformation. And the way that she got there is a very interesting journey. So stay tuned. I don't want to give too much away, but I think you're going to love this episode. Without further ado, Mo.
7 months. My parents currently live here.
Okay.
So I decided to sit out some of the pandemic.
Nice. What a way to sit out the pandemic. If you doing it in style, child.
Yeah, but I'm returning. I'm flying back to England on Sunday.
On Sunday? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm so glad that I have you on this podcast.
Okay.
I don't know how much you know, but this podcast actually started out in the pandemic. Over here in California, where I currently reside. I used to do a lot of workforce development programs, and in that, I used to speak to youth a lot and about careers and help put together different workforce programs. And a lot of youth had a limiting beliefs of what they could do and be based on, I don't know, I'm assuming I guess it's a number of factors, but what I realized is that there was not enough of us being in media or stories being told of the greatness that we do. And I wanted to bring that to fruition and highlight it so these youth, or even adults, because adults too have limiting beliefs on what we could do, what we could be.
Exactly.
Or they had this notion that there's only one Black person in that job or that spot or that entrepreneurship, so there can't be another one.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, there's a whole bunch of us, because I met a whole bunch because I won this startup pitch competition. So, and I got to meet so many different people doing amazing things. And I was like, man, people need to hear about this. I didn't even know that this was possible.
Okay. Yeah.
So I started a podcast to highlight wonderful people like you.
Now, I have listened to some of your podcasts. You've had some really good guests on. So it's a lot of guests in a year. Is it a year period or just under?
Yeah, it's a year. So I just started the top of this year. And that's what I released. I've been releasing one a week. And I have a whole bunch recorded that need to be edited.
Oh, I see. Okay, wow.
So here we are. So I guess let's start off at the beginning. Like, who is Mo? Tell us about who is Mo. How would you? I know, and that's a very deep question. But take that as far and as wide, or wherever you want to take that question.
I would say who I am. I would say in the now. One thing about me is very much about the now. So how I am right now, I would say very optimistic. As funny as it is, we've come out to a weird time, but generally I'm an optimistic person. I would also say I'm a practicing Buddhist.
Okay.
So I actually live by intent is one thing, but also great belief that everything changes. Nothing is fixed. Everything is in consistent flux, whether we realize it or not. And I think having that as a basis of how I live can make things a lot easier to bear. I mean, it's tough, but it's understanding that's how things are. And I also have a great belief in people, actually. So me as a believer in people. And I'm an aunt. I'm a sister. I'm not I'm a mother without having children of my own. I'm a godmother. So lots of different things. And a daughter. I've spent 7 months with my parents, first time in more than 30 years. I spent this month this amount of time with my parents. So it's reestablishing a lot of new things, but I would say ultimately an eternal optimist, I would say.
Right. Oh, I love that. And that's a great attitude to have with everything that we've experienced in the pandemic, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it takes, I was like, what did I say to someone the other day? It takes a good pandemic for you to sit down and really realize what's important. Or should I say, not a good pandemic, we were sitting at home for too long. That's what I would say.
Sit at home and a lot of time to reflect in the now and with self and go through those. Whether people were practicing being Buddhist or not, they got a taste of it in the pandemic if they really sat down.
I mean, it's a hard thing to live by. It's taken me a really long time to get there. It's not an overnight thing. I'll be honest with you. It's a constant process, yeah.
But even when you were talking about the term of staying in flux, it hit me like, I was like, yeah, because you need both. Like there's just no one without the other, and both are needed. Sometimes that's hard for us to process as human beings, that both of those things are needed, and to be okay with it.
Yeah, I think that's that has been part of my process, and I think just the very fact that there's that underlying belief system I have that's helped, but it's an everyday thing, if I'm honest with you.
Nah. Now, did the pandemic sort of test your optimism in people? I don't know if you, because I know for me there was a small piece, because I'm an optimist too, and there was a small piece of me like, what is the matter with people? Because I got overly inundated with media and all of the negative things that were happening, at least on the U.S. side, during George Floyd and the ongoing things that were happening around the world. And did it test it a little bit?
It tested me. I wouldn't necessarily say so. I mean, so I was in the UK when all of that was happening, and definitely the same as you, the negativity was going around and it's all in your head. And sometimes I would say, what is wrong with people? But then at the end of the day, people are people. And I still ultimately believe there's something in everyone that's not that awful. That's not that bad. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the time, to be honest, sometimes I'd have to stop listening to the news just to collect my thoughts, just to make sure I didn't get lost down whatever rabbit holes were there to be fallen down. But yeah, I mean, it does test. I wouldn't lie, but it did mean stopping and thinking a bit. But the field I work in, if I'm honest with you, it sounds crazy. I've been in it long enough to see a pattern of every time there's chaos, we do some really good stuff. So in a way, it was a double-edged sword again.
Yeah. So that chaos is needed to do some really good stuff. So tell me about the field you're working in. Tell me a little bit about it, and how did you get into this field?
So I work in the digital field area. So I've been in way back when. I used to work in the music industry. Funny enough, I started out in the music industry in public relations and tour management.
Wow.
And coming out of that, I studied. I went back to college, went back to university and studied, and did a degree that was part technology, part business. Came out of that, and it was just when, showing age, when things were called there was e-business and these weird things that no one really knew what they were. And a friend of mine gave me some advice. He said, study that with an E in it, because you'll be set. We don't know what, he kind of said, don't do anything else. So I went into that, finished that degree. And then everyone who I studied with went into banking. And I never wanted to work in a bank. Well, it wasn't digital at the time. It was tech. Tech and business. It was tech and business with one module about what is now deemed digital. But I studied business systems with MBA attachment. It was a master's degree. And I decided I didn't want to work in banking. And I ended up working for a publishing company who wanted to put everything online. And that's how it all began in the 90s.
That is a beautiful segue. And you hit it at the prime time too, when right at the peak, I'm assuming. Was that
No, I joined a large company after that publishing company that crashed 2 days before I joined. So but I stayed. It was actually Yahoo. They crashed 2 days before I joined. And so I moved to the US when they, when the shares that I thought I was going to have would be worth loads were worth $6 a share. And before I joined, 2 days before I joined, it was like $1,000 a share. So yeah, that's how it started. But I stuck it out, and I'm still here.
Yeah, you're still here. So tell me about the transition. So wait, what was your first job coming out of university?
Well, my first ever job, which lasted 2 weeks. I'm not going to lie, I was an environmental scientist, and I lasted 2 weeks in that. and then I went into the music industry because I used to write for college. Universities used to write for magazines, and I just applied to record labels because I like writing and I like music. And I got in as an intern, and then I started working for alongside was freelancing for a magazine. And through that magazine, I ended up working for a band who I interviewed them, and they hired me because they needed management. I had no idea what management was, but I just thought I can do this. And I ended up working with the band and ended up being a tour manager and doing promotions and learning the business on my feet, basically.
Yeah. That's really learning it trial by fire. And I'm assuming that you've encountered almost everything you could possibly think of in business. What's the most interesting thing you ever had to do as a band manager that you could say on the podcast?
Oh wow! I would say the most interesting event I ever had to look after the band. There was two. I mean, I was in my early 20s. They were older than me too, right? So I was kind of an interim manager before they got a real one. Is the real deal is what happened, because they were signed. So they were signed to a major out of New York, and we did a private gig in a huge house by Lake Geneva. So it was in someone's house. Lenny Kravitz was headlining, and it was this guy and his friends, and just organizing that was just off. I couldn't even go into detail what that was about. Considering it was in someone's house. Considering it was in someone's house, the level of detail was quite immense.
Oh man. And I'm pretty sure it was a pretty good sized house too.
Well, we all stayed there. We didn't stay in hotels. But I mean, there are lots of different stories, but I think in terms of learning, it's you learn a lot. I was exposed to so many things and so many people, and in terms of business, I think that was funny enough, it's a great place to start when I look back now with hindsight.
Yeah. And I always tell people, look, just start, because the first job may not be the job that you want or catapult the career that you want, but there's things that you can do within your first job that you could take away from that helps you grow as a person, that you can take along with you in life. What are some of the things you think, whether you want to choose from that environmental job or that manager job, that you valuable lessons that you learned that you may still use to this day, or that you took away from that experience?
I mean, definitely the adaptability. The music industry no day was the same. You have to be adaptable. People, I always put people first in every job that I've done, especially since then. Because regardless what anyone says, you really can't function without good relationships or trying to be empathetic and understand people. So I would say that's one big learning. Another one is hardcore skill. I learned how to negotiate pretty early on in the music industry.
Okay.
And that has kind of stayed. That has been quite key throughout everything I've done.
Now I'm scared to negotiate with you.
It's not. I mean, I didn't realize I was doing it at the time. But, further down the line, you start to realize that funny enough, I've started to see similarities across music, digital, and even the work I'm doing now, as consulting. There seems to be a thread that runs through it, even though other people might not see it. I definitely do.
What's the key to a good negotiation?
It's not about winning. It's not always about winning. And sometimes it's the long game, which, I've learned that over time. When I was younger, I'd want it to be done in a day. Now I can sit out and take my time with stuff now. So it's I would say it's about being respectful as well. I mean, there's different scenarios. I try and be respectful, and it's not always about winning. And you kind of just deal with it as it comes, is how I've looked at it. And I've actually become quite comfortable with it now, whereas before I wasn't. It's been a learning curve.
Yeah, I think we get more comfortable with it as we get older and wiser. Probably that Buddha teaching helps you sit out some things. Like,
I mean, I'm not perfect, but I have learned how to be quiet. That's another thing I've learned over the years, is how not to talk all the time. But yeah, that's another thing.
I love that. So take me on this journey, because you started out in environmental work. Then you went in the manager. What was the transition like from coming out? What made you go through the transition and say, "Hey, the tour life isn't for me anymore"? And what was that transition like, going from that career
to write digital? You mean? Yeah. I think in the music, I got to a point. I loved it in the beginning, and it didn't feel like work. And one day it started to feel like a job. And I wanted to study. I'm someone who's, at that time, I was still in my mid-20s. I was still quite young. And I wanted to study. I always did want to study. And it was beginning to, the constant travel was difficult. I didn't see my friends unless I invited them to something I was working at. It was a stage I got to. And most of my friends were not in the music industry at all. My close friends. And so it was all that kind of stuff, and you start looking at stuff differently. And I was tired. I was tired. It became to feel like a job. I'm not a musician. I think it's very different if you're a musician versus someone who's on the business side. And I just needed a break. I took the break, and I thought I'd come back. That was the idea. But then it just didn't happen. I think I'm still close to people in the industry now. And I still get asked to do things here and there, but it's not. I now do it for love, not for money. And that makes a big difference for me personally.
That's that humanitarian part in you that just gets to help people from a human level.
I do. I get to go to gigs still. I still get to see the fun side of things. But I think I just got to the point of I wanted to do something different. And I'd hit a wall, basically.
Yeah, so you hit that wall. I want to do something different. What was the mindset and game plan from there?
I went and studied this degree, my master's degree, with no real idea of what was next. It's only when I graduated, and it was actually someone I'd been to college with who was like, "Hey, there's this job. Do you want to try it out?" They needed. I mean, it was publishing. I'm slightly creative. I sit between creativity and technology. I don't think I'm one or the other. I've had always this struggle with the two, or the middle ground of the two. And I just started off in a publishing company. I was working in the design department, making print digital. And that's how it started.
Wow. What a story. And then when did you know that you had something that you could stick with? When did it hit you to say, I think this, I like this, and I could turn this into a career?
really realistically, I've never thought of it as a career.
Oh,
I've
wow.
just loved what I did. And I think it was only probably very recently when I actually made a really when I talk about intent, I started making really intentional decisions because I've worked in the product side of things. So I made stuff. I was working with teams who thought things up and made stuff. And back in the 90s, it was a bit of the Wild West. We just did a lot of good stuff. No one had done it before. So it was in the innovation space. I would say it's probably known in the last, probably the last 10 years when I've been really intentional about what I've been doing. Before that, it was just, I always used to say I'm as good as my last job. That's how I used to live. Okay. But I did some really good stuff. But I think it became an intentional career choice, and everything took a different direction as well. When I'd say about 10 years ago, when I would say I became a lot more aware of the environment I was working in, whereas beforehand I was just having a really good time. If I'm honest with you.
All right. No, I love the honesty. We speak in truth here. And I feel like you're such a free spirit hearing your story. Like you just wherever life and energy takes you submit to it. Is that fair to say?
100%. I do make some cautious decisions. But I would say on the digital side of things, it's a field I enjoy. And I've moved from product when you're making stuff. When it wasn't called product at the time. So, for example, I built some really big platforms. I worked for some really big brands. And even while you're doing all this stuff, you're also changing a business as a whole. But I was just, yes, you're thinking about what you're doing, but I wasn't thinking this is an actual career choice. I was like, I love digital. I'm staying within digital. And I've just stuck there for more than 20 years. And but I think it's the last 10 where it's been much more intentional, and the things you talked about at the beginning about thinking about other people and others, and especially the younger ones. I started looking around me and seeing, okay, this is a different, when I started, it's not the same people as I was with then. So I'm now with now, the more senior you get, the more experience you get. And that's kind of when I started thinking quite differently. So I've kept on doing what I'm doing, but I've put myself in spaces where I can, I guess, give back as well.
Yeah.
And also the kind of projects I take on. I mean, I've always had a thread of, there's certain areas, because I've worked in different industries. There's certain industries I won't work in just because for me personally, it doesn't sit right. But now it's very intentional about what the people represent, what the companies represent, as well as the job that I'm doing. It's a lot different.
I like that. So wait, what is your official like if there was a young person that wanted to go the career route, like how would they study for? What's the official kind of title to this?
What did I study, or the title I gave myself?
Okay, what's the title you go with? Okay, right. All right. I guess that is two different questions, because there's what I'm going to go study, and then the title you give yourself after you study it.
I mean, I've had different ones, but now I look at business growth, because digital has become it's across everything. So if I've been working on product or transformation, you touch every single part of the business. So you start to understand business as a whole. So right now, I would say I definitely am a business growth person. But if someone was to say, what do you do in digital? I'm a product person. I make stuff. I think about strategies. What do people need? And I make things. Or I'm part of a team that makes things.
Because I imagine that those are closely aligned, the product design and business growth, because of everything that you just mentioned, with having to go through that whole process. Yeah. Now, if a young person, or let's say somebody who's pivoting a career, was to want to get into the business growth industry, in the same way that you've got into it, what advice or strategies would you give them to start to explore it and go down that path or route?
I mean, I think first is finding something that you love. I mean, as much as I didn't have a career aspiration, I think I knew what it was. I like systems. I like solving problems. So even in, whether I was tour managing, whatever, I like solving problems. I don't mind people throwing problems at me and go off and do it. So I think it's finding something that you love. And I think definitely in digital, there's so many aspects of it now. So I mentor especially young women, actually, young Black women. I'll be straight up with that. A lot of them think they have to be into technology, and that's not the case. There's so many ways in. So I think it's definitely finding something you love. And being I'd say it's difficult to fathom. Find something you love and then find the direction. I'd say one big thing I've had is having a mentor as well. I know without that, I wouldn't necessarily have had the guidance. So I did very early on in my career, I did find a mentor. And it was an accidental one.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't.
How did you accidentally find a mentor? Tell me that story.
At a conference, I was outside where I was not supposed to be because I wasn't, and they were doing the same as me. We were both having a breather, and we got talking, and then that's carried on from there. And that was someone it was a digital conference, and I've stayed under that mentorship ever since, pretty much.
Okay.
And it would be, I think I could just reinforce it. Find something you love. I keep saying digital is ubiquitous. It touches everything. And there's no one way in anymore. I think when I started, definitely, you had to have some technology. I taught myself to code. I taught myself some hard skills. But after 2 years, I'm a terrible coder. Luckily, if I was stuck to that, I would not be here now. And so I stopped doing that and moved into more project management, which again brings in lots of facets. And then over the years, I've moved, into the creative side. I've worked in the strategy side. So strategy and business is where I sit, where I'm comfortable. But I advise people coming in now, find what it is, what your thing is. And there's in many different ways. And the young girls I mentor, we do focus a lot on coding because that's you just don't find women there, especially not women of color. But that's not the only way. I stopped after 2 years because I'm bad at it. Terrible. But I understand enough to talk to a coder. I understand what they go through to be able to talk to them. But I would never be able to do what they do.
Yeah, that's very good advice. I often tell some of my young folks too that I mentor, because I mentor young Black men, and I always tell them, look, my famous saying that I tell them is like, do what you love what you do, don't chase the money, let the money chase you. And what I mean by that is that if you do what you love and you're passionate about it and you do it well, people will find you. The right things will find you, and you won't have to worry about the money part because people will gladly pay for you to bring that skill, that talent, that energy that you have and love that you have to their place of business to exude whatever it is.
That's very true. I can't agree with that more. That's absolutely true.
Yeah, because a lot of these young folks, they come out of, because my dad is from Nigeria. I had an immigrant parent, and they always preached, go to school and these jobs will make you money, like lawyer, engineer, doctor. And then the counselor did the same thing. Go to these careers. You want to go to these careers because they're stable and they will make you money. But nobody was talking about do a career that you love. They was like, these are careers are going to make you money. And I remember when I first, because I used to like art. And I told my Nigerian dad that I wanted to do art. He's like, what is this rubbish art? How will you pay your bills with art? I be like, we are not doing art here, my friend.
yeah, I had a similar comment. Well, I studied sciences and arts all the way up to university, and then I wanted to go to art school, and I was told I would starve. And you could always come back a bit later, but I ended up in the music industry, which my parents had no idea what I was doing. They just didn't ask me any questions, I guess, which is, it's another way of looking at it. And to be honest, it was only now in the last 7 months when my dad actually heard, he read an interview I did, and he went, I'm really sorry for ignoring you or not getting involved when you're in the music industry. I didn't realize what you were doing. He thought it was just crazy and parties, and he didn't realize it's actually the business. So I think that's definitely an African parent thing. It's not engineering, accountant, or doctor or lawyer, from a generation.
And I don't fault them. I think, that's all they knew. And so since that's all they knew, and they wanted to give us the best, that's what they stuck to. And they didn't bother with anything else. You've had a very rich life. What would you say what's one good lesson life has taught you?
It's one thing. I mean, I think it's trying not to worry about what other people think of you, because I say this to young people, that's generally nothing to do with you, because people bring their own things to the table. And that's one thing. And I'll definitely say, again, when you're working in cross environments and coming across lots of people bring perceptions and all sorts to the table. And as long as, and you're not aware of those. So try not to get in your own head is one thing I would say for sure. And I think the other thing is I said about change. When I believe stuff, life is always in flux, constantly, is the good life lesson to me is you be prepared for change, because it's going to happen, right? It always will. And that doesn't mean that's not a negative. I always kind of see that as a positive thing.
What are some things that you do to prepare for change? Like, because change is not always easy.
No.
And I find that when it's not easy, people are resistant to change. So how do you prepare for change? Like to get a soft landing and to be and open change with open arms, even when it's not something that
not
you necessarily want to change.
It's soft though. It can be a hard landing, right? But, it can be quite. But I think I've got to the stage of leaning into it. I mean, I think I've come from, I was raised with, family who moved. So change wasn't something, when you're used to that, when you're young, you just have to lean into it. And I think as an individual anyway, I can be quite restless anyway. And so for me, it's leaning into it and having to go with it. And I guess my belief system is it's not always easy. And that's, I think, when you get past that, for me personally, when I got past the point of understanding and accepting it's not always easy, you kind of just lean in, you kind of go with it, even if it's hard. Gotcha. And it's a very difficult one for me to say, but I think I've kind of got to that point. And also working within digital, it changes every single day. I wouldn't be in it if I was not. I think anyone who works in that environment, in that field, is open to change, because otherwise you wouldn't stay there.
Right. But you love solving problems, so I imagine it may be easier at work. Like when you were saying that, I was like, all right, so what if this change is painful? Like, is she telling me don't run from the pain, run towards it?
No, I think it's not run towards it, but when it comes, and you kind of have to lean into it, because as you said, otherwise you stop. And sometimes change isn't always good. So one thing I always say is change can happen, and if it's not always good, there's other ways of then getting to the point you need to be at. Sometimes you just have to stop. You don't have to always run into it and not think about it, But I think for me, I make a lot, as much as I go with change, I do think things through. It's not just off you go and do it, because there's other people I have to consider.
Yeah.
So it's to me, it's accepting that it's not easy, but it's also embracing it. And as much as you can, seeing when things come your way, sometimes it's for a reason, and it could be good, and it could be good.
Yeah, it could be good. How do you stay grounded to make those decisions?
I've got some very good family and friends around me.
That's why you're in hiatus right now.
No, but I was described the other day, which I never thought about myself this way. Someone said, you're really full of energy, you're full of life, but you're really pragmatic. And that's a word I'd never used to describe myself before.
Really?
Yeah, I was kind of like, oh, am I? I always thought I was kind of a bit out there. And they're like, no, you're really pragmatic. And that's again, someone's observation of how they've seen me operate. And so I thought, well, I must be in a way, because I haven't, I don't make uncalculated changes or unthought through. I mean, the change can come, but there is an element of thinking stuff through before you then lean in or try and take another direction.
Right. Okay, I can see that. I'm up here thinking through our interview and how we first started, then how I heard you speak, and then how we spoke about stuff. And then now hearing this, I was like, I can see that. I can see that. Do you see yourself more like that now after you heard it?
After that statement, I kind of went, yeah. But then I guess that's whole part of the process. I would say, especially coming back here, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I've lived in different countries, different parts of the world, and this is my first time back in the continent. I was born in Zambia. I left really young. Yeah. And this is the longest I've spent on the continent in my life.
Really?
Yeah. 7 months.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, when did you leave? When did you first leave?
I left when there was a few, under one.
Under one.
And then we'd come back and forth, back up, but never like long chunks of time.
So how's that?
And that's been this has been a real shift.
Yeah. I can imagine. So now I got tons of questions going on. Like, how was that experience? Like being there, sitting in there, and going through the practice of Buddha, like that you're going through, and slowing down and taking it all in. Like, what's? I mean, man, must have been a really good process for you.
Cultural minefield. Let me be honest with you. That's the first thing. I've lived in Europe and lived in the US, and this is very different here. And you just have to. A friend of mine, actually, he's Nigerian heritage, and he spent a couple of years in Nigeria a few years ago, but he's London based. He said, you just have to strip all that London stuff off you. And I went, yeah, but you don't realize you're carrying it in the first few months. And then after a few months, you kind of think, oh, I get it now. So I move like this, whereas everyone else moves like this in lots of different ways. And I've been working here. I mean, I have been on vacation, so I've picked up a couple of clients here. And even though I'm doing growth, change and all this consulting, my approach has had to change hugely. And I'll be honest with you, it's the most respectful environment I've ever worked in terms of how people communicate with you when they're in front of you. In one level, that is completely different.
I imagine they are very present in the conversation.
They're very, very present. And a lot of this stuff, again, that you might have to deal with when I was working in London, just doesn't exist. So you're just operating because you're there because they want you there. And everyone is respectful for why you're there. And that's kind of the basis of it. But then I've had to learn patience like I've never had before, because again, it's a different way of thinking.
Right.
There's good and bad. I've taken things, because the other thing, I've worked in Asia as well, so I'd actually say there's closer similarities working here than with when I worked in Asia. There's some very close similarities, culture-wise, would I say?
Yeah. Wow. So now that you've experienced this culture, do you think there's some things that you're going to take away with you and do differently when you get back to London? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if you're, I try and do that work, because with the work we do, I'm working with the company 2i3x, we work with people from all over the world, and I've worked globally with different companies. You kind of try and take something from every experience. I think the one I'm going to take from here is definitely, oh my God, the patience, which you don't even, I know my temperament has changed over the last 7 months. And even speaking to friends and stuff in the UK, they say, you sound different.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, how? They're like, you sound more chilled out. Which again is, you would notice it.
Wait till they see you.
Yeah, that's the other thing, right?
There's like, you are more chilled out, and you're really in tune to this conversation right now.
You're not looking at your phone every 5 minutes. Exactly. That kind of stuff.
but it'll be a good change. At least, hopefully, I think it would be a good change for
I
you
hope
just to
so.
be in there.
No, I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to going back to London, but I'm kind of like, oh, I haven't seen crowds in a really long time. Thinking.
Wait, are you an introvert or extrovert?
I think I'm both.
Okay.
Depends. I mean, I like my own company once in a while, but I do like to see people quite a bit.
Okay. All right. So you could fluctuate between the two.
I need 1 day a week. I need 1 day a week within my own space. Otherwise, I feel weird. That's as good as it gets.
Okay. That's fair. Because if you got people coming at you all the time, when do you have time to be with self, to reflect and recharge?
I mean, that's the big difference here, though. People turn up here unannounced, which is very un-English. So that's the one thing I have to get used to, is just someone can knock on your door at any time of the day, and you can't say go away because it's considered incredibly rude. Whereas in England, that would never happen. They're all in advance, all that kind of stuff. That doesn't exist here.
That's definitely different. I would say that's very similar to US. Like, people plan to show up at people's house. They don't just show up at people's house or place.
Oh yeah, they just do, and that's the way. That took a bit of getting used to, but hey, now I'm like, whatever, it doesn't matter anymore,
I love it. So I'll try to see. I would love to do this interview for hours on end, but I gotta transition us into. we got deep into conversations. I was like, oh, okay, all right, wait, let me get a little bit back on topic. All right, so what do you think the future has in store for your industry? I know you're mentoring Black women. I know for me, that's something I like to see more people of color in industries like yours and other industries that I found that just have a lack of or shortage of, and expose different people to these careers. But what do you see as far as the future? And that could be anything, whether exposing more people of color to it, to the advancements in technology. What do you see?
I mean, definitely the positives, the advancements in technology. It's changed. I mean, so I see growth, and I see quite a bright future. The one thing I would really love, and the funny thing is actually being in Africa as well, the speed here is incredible. It's much quicker than us. It blew my mind. They are, because they forgot the internet. They're straight on mobile, and the stuff they're doing on mobile doesn't even exist in Europe or America because they don't have the baggage that those countries have. So in some ways, it's really positive as far as the continent. In UK, I'm seeing a real positive change, especially within the groups I'm mentoring, within the industry as a whole. And I think everything that's happened in the last years has kind of had a bit of a positive spin on the industry, and it will continue to grow. But no buts. I think it's a positive thing. I just see growth, and with the hindsight, it's every shift, whether it's been the dot-com bubble bursting or some economic crisis or something always good happens in the digital industry around that time. Something good comes out, or someone's looking at things slightly differently, and because technology can be adaptable and so quick, it's I think there's lots of positives that can come out of it. Negative sides, yes, I'm interested in AI. I'm interested in all of what's happening there, and to try and make it, if possible, be part of something that makes sure that it's equitable or gets to the point of equity, because that's the big negative that's currently being seen.
Yeah. And I think that's with a lot of industries, trying to figure out the equity piece, as it has not been equitable for a long time in these different industries, right?
Yeah.
Where you see the leaders at the top of those industries have control over it, and there's a certain demographic that that's being appealed to, or where all the resources and everything that is needed to grow and advance sit with a certain pool of people at the top. So I like that equity piece. All right. So what projects are you currently working on, and where can people find you?
Currently, I've got a few things on. So I'm with 2i3X, which is a growth company, growth consultancy. So I'm working currently with an energy company in Zambia, which is fascinating. So my environmental science stuff is slowly being dusted off in the research online, as well as doing the digital piece.
Going back to where it all started from, huh?
Where it all started from. Well, you have to. I've been in conferences with these people, and they talk about stuff, and I'm like, oh, what the hell are they talking about? But I'm doing a digital growth transformation project with them. I've just finished up working with a fintech as well. So with 2i3X, we have different clients. And I'm just looking also at social entrepreneurship with women from within Africa, and also coming in from the UK in terms of training and getting them up and running. And my mentorship program continues. And I've got a formal mentorship with they're called the Fashion Minority Report. They're based in the UK and the US. They have mentors from all different industries. So I'm working in digital, but it's to get people of color within the fashion industry. Because again, it's an industry where you don't see that. So I'm mentoring a young woman on that, which has been great fun. Right. And how do you find me? I'm on LinkedIn, Mwangala Lishomwa, Instagram as well, Twitter as well. I keep the name the same. Okay. You won't find me on Facebook, and you will. And you will find me.
Why are you boycotting Facebook? What did Facebook do to you?
That is a long conversation for another day. And I'm also at 2i3x.com, which is the main thing that I'm doing, which is a growth consultancy. So all the details are on there.
Well, Mo, it's been a pleasure, and we're gonna have to stay in touch because I see a lot of cross collaboration because since I've started this podcast, I mean, it's always been a vision because I was born Black American. My dad, the stepfather, is Nigerian. I have both of those cultures, and then as I grew the podcast, I started. My business partner is from the UK and Nigeria, and so we've connected a lot of people between in this diaspora between US based, UK based, Nigeria, Africa, and there seems to be this theme and conversation where we're having these conversations like, how do we connect all the Blacks in the diaspora with each other to grow and build and funnel resources and everything with each other, because there's people wanting that connection. Exactly. But we haven't quite figured it out yet, but I think we're on our way to something special with what you have going on and us doing a podcast, and then start connecting those dots.
Yeah, no, that would be great. Yeah.
So thank you. Any last words of wisdom out there before we jump off? Let's say if there's that little girl who's listening, who's inspired, or that young woman or man that's listening and ready to do a pivot in life and shift. Well, any last words of wisdom?
I would just say be brave, and as I keep saying, the big thing I was told. Politics and work is what people think about you. I.e., don't worry about it. It's not really much to do with you. But my main thing would be brave. Be brave and stay optimistic.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Words of wisdom by Mo. Be brave and stay optimistic. And if anything, I could say she's always optimistic, or at least 80 to 90% of the time. This has been another episode of Risepreneurs. I'm Terrell Simmons, your host, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Risepreneurs podcast.
Thank you for taking the journey.
Be sure to like, comment, and smash that subscribe button. And stay connected with Terrell on and off the show. Follow at Risepreneurs on all platforms.
Do what you love what you do. Don't chase the money. Let the money chase you.